Hello, welcome to another edition of Quarantine Edition. This time we are baking, hence the apron. Okay, I tend to get a little bit messy, so I put my apron on. Today we are baking zucchini muffins. So this for me, I don't know about you, but I'm an emotional eater. Okay, so this time at the house has really been causing me to want to bake, been causing me to want to eat a lot of baked goods. So if you like banana bread, zucchini bread, this is going to be a great recipe for you to satisfy that craving, but still feel like you're on track with your nutrition goals. So if you have watched other episodes, I usually don't have quite this much going on, but please trust me, it is not that difficult. I don't even get a mixer out to do this, and I'm going to talk you through it one step at a time. So what you're going to need, okay, we're making muffins, so you're going to need your muffin pan. I always like to have my trusty Rachel Ray garbage bowl over here, just to get rid of things as I go. Okay. You're going to need two mixing bowls that are pretty big, measuring cups, measuring spoons, spatula, spoon to stir, okay, and measure. Ingredients, we need 2 eggs. You want them room temperature when you're baking. It'll just help you mix them better. Okay, they'll combine better with the rest of your ingredients. So 2 eggs, 1/2 cup applesauce, okay, 1/4 cup of sugar, which I have pre-measured here, okay, and 1 teaspoon, ooh, hello, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So those are the wet ingredients we'll start with. For your dry ingredients, you're going to want 1.25 cups of whole wheat flour. Again, getting that nutrition, so getting the protein, the whole grain. I can't have whole wheat flour. I have celiac, so if you're doing gluten-free baking with me, trust that I have tested this. These are delicious. Okay, I'm using a mixture of an all-purpose gluten-free flour and almond flour, and I'm just doing half and half, so I'm still getting that protein, those health benefits, similar to the whole wheat flour. So 1.25 cups of flour, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. No, this is on the edge, you can't really see it. 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, I think half teaspoon of ground ginger, and 1/4 teaspoon of cloves, ground cloves. The other day, I will share with you when I was making this, I couldn't find my cloves anywhere. So I used allspice and I just sort of, I just adjusted the ratios and the measurements, and they're delicious. But today when I went to make this little guy, my ground cloves, was sitting right at the top of the spice rack on top of everything. So my husband must have found it and put it there for me. He loves me. That's nice. Okay. You're also going to need 2 cups of grated zucchini, which I'm going to go through with you in a bit, but it's really like 2 small zucchinis. Okay, just wash them. You don't need to peel them, just wash them. And then 1/2 cup raisins, which I have pre-measured here, and 2/3 cups toasted. You can use pecans, which is what I've done, or you can use walnuts. I don't really care for walnuts, so pecans is definitely the way to go for me. Again, you want to toast those just for some added flavor. They'll be much richer. So what I do is I just line a baking sheet with parchment paper and then put that in a 350-degree oven for 8 to 10 minutes, depending. You can also do it on the stovetop. You just really want to watch, make sure you're turning them frequently so that they're evenly cooking, okay, and don't get burnt. Okay, so that's it for ingredients. So we're going to start by preheating the oven to 350 degrees. Start. Okay, and we're going to spray our muffin pan with nonstick cooking spray, okay, which I've already done because it usually lures the dogs, and so I've gone through that without you. So we'll see if we get any visitors at some point, but hopefully not. Okay, so spray that, get that ready to go, and then it's going to suggest starting with your large bowl and your wet ingredients and combining those. I typically start with my dry ingredients just because I don't, call me lazy, but I like to measure with the dry ingredients first, and then I don't feel like I have to go and wash it before I pour my vanilla in. Whereas if I start with the wet ingredients and start with the vanilla, then I need to go rinse that and dry it before I dip it into my baking soda. So you choose, but I'm going to start with the dry ingredients. So the first thing we need is the 1 1/4 cup flour. So again, I'm doing gluten-free. So I have, let me do this a little bit. Sorry. So I have a mix of all-purpose gluten-free flour and almond flour. And I just wanted to go through this with you, whether you're doing gluten-free or not. You don't just want to scoop your measuring cup. You don't want to scoop the measuring cup in, round it off, and throw it in your bowl, okay? Instead, you want to use a spoon. You want to gently put that flour into your measuring cup, letting it fall on its own. And then when you get to the top, you can round it off. Okay. Baking is exact, so you want to be sure you're really following the measurements. Okay, so there's 1. And now I need 1/4, which, oh goodness, that's right there, so that's not good. Well, I'm going to eyeball this, so after I say baking should be exact. This is a 1/2 cup, so I'm going to do half of this. Okay. The reason you want to do this with a spoon and not just dip and go, because I know it's faster that way, but taking the time to do this will make a big difference in the weight of the flour, which is going to change the consistency of your baked goods. So if you were to just dip this in and pack it in there like brown sugar, you're going to have a much denser baked product. Doing it like this will keep it nice and light and fluffy. Okay, that's about half, so we're gonna call that good. Fingers crossed. Again, try to be exact when baking, but this is what happens when I pre-measure and use my measuring cup. Okay, so we're mixing our flour, and then I've kind of pre-done this, okay? So then you're going to add your salt, so 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 1 1/2 teaspoon ground cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of the ginger, and 1/4 teaspoon of that ground clove. So I measure these ahead of time. Going to be adding those. I'm just going to use a whisk. Just trying to get all that color even. The cinnamon's kind of a giveaway because it's darker, so you just don't want any clumps of one color. Can smell that. Oven's ready. I'm not. Okay. And if you have kids baking with you, it's kind of fun to let them smell the spices. Like I did this ahead of time, and it's like ginger. That just like livens you up. Okay. And then you get to the cloves. Cloves make me take a deep breath, which is really great right now. Okay. So you know, in your goodies at the end, you're going to get all of that. A little livelihood and then a little rest. Okay. So we have our dry ingredients mixed. Okay. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do my wet ingredients. So starting with the eggs, I crack them on the table because I think they're less likely to break the shell. Well, you're breaking the shell, but you're less likely to get the shell in your egg that way. If you ever do get the shell in there though, well, one, you can put them in a separate bowl first. That makes it a little easier to, like if you already have other stuff in the bowl, if you put your eggs in separately, then you can monitor that before you mix it all together. But if you do get the shell in there, shell attracts shell. Shell attracts shell. It's hard to say. Okay. So instead of going in there with your finger or a spoon, just use the shell. And that's going to be the easiest way to get that out. Okay. So I have the 2 eggs. Need the 1/2 cup of applesauce, which is conveniently as much that are in these little packaged containers. Spoon. Garbage bowl. Your 1/4 cup sugar. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So again, this is why I did the dry first, because I was using this for the other ingredients. And now I can just pour this in here. It's one less thing I have to wash. Okay. Patting myself before. That's what I like. To get the egg yolks broken up. So again, trying to get this even so there aren't any standouts. The yolk is kind of the tell here once you don't see any more chunks of yolk. And again, going back to the eggs being room temperature, you just want them to set out for maybe 30 minutes. So as you get your ingredients ready, just put the eggs out and then they'll set while you get everything, you know, ready for yourself. And then they'll probably be ready to go. You don't want them to set out more than 2 hours. That becomes a food safety issue. So don't set them out in the morning if you're going to bake in the afternoon. Or if it's really hot, like 90 degrees or more, you really have an hour. Okay, so just set them out at the beginning. It's not a big deal. Okay, so we have our wet ingredients. We have our dry ingredients. Now we're going to pour the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients. Goodbye, bowl. And we're going to stir this just until combined. It's okay, actually, this is if you're using whole wheat flour. The deal with the whole wheat flour is it has that gluten, that protein in it, and you don't want to overwork it. So you want to stir until it's just combined. It's perfectly fine if you have a few lumps, but for those of us who are doing gluten-free, you don't have the gluten to worry about overworking, so whatever, but no reason to work harder than you need to. So here we go. Can we see this? That's good enough, okay? Next, we are going to stir in the raisins, zucchinis, and the nuts. So my raisins and my nuts are ready to go. Again, either pecans, walnuts, whatever you want, whatever you have on hand, whatever sounds good. Raisins, I have golden raisins. I didn't, actually the other day when I did that batch, I used up the rest of my raisins and then had to finish them off with golden raisins. They're the same nutritionally, and I kind of prefer the taste of golden raisins, so I'm looking forward to this. Okay, I wanted to show you, if you're not used to baking with zucchini, I just wanted to give you a few tips here as I have my knife up. That's not safe, kids, okay? Get all of this out of my way. So you can use a food processor if you have that. For me, that's a lot of dishes. It's a lot of work. So I just like to use the box grater. So I've done 1 zucchini here. Again, we need about 2 to get to 2 cups. So the first thing I want to do is just, well, the first thing I did was wash it, scrub it, okay? But you don't need to peel it. We're going to use that skin. It has the fiber. So you want to just cut off that little nub at the end. And then making sure this is nice and flat and you have a good grip on it, okay? You can just grate this. So this is just a box grater. I use the bigger sides. You can use the smaller side of a grater if maybe you're trying to hide all of the green stuff in a baked good. You know, hello. My dad would say, what is that? So you might want to use the smaller side, but it'll increase the moisture content a little bit. So the big side is fine. And I think it's kind of pretty to see those green things in it. It's a little rustic. I bake and I feel closer to home. It's one benefit. It's probably why I'm craving it so much right now. I always say, you know, I have 2 homes. One is wherever I'm living with my husband and the other is a farm in Iowa. So I think especially during this time, we're all kind of craving that connection. And for me, it's all the time because I'm pretty far away from them and don't see them often. But this is a good way for me to feel close. And again, it's not sabotaging all of my nutrition goals. So I hope you're enjoying this with me. Okay, so I have this little nub, right? Careful at the end. Have this little nub. I'm going to throw that away. And now I will measure this. Okay, I did this the other day, and they were about the same size as zucchini. But I guess I should make sure I have that 2 cups because, again, that's the moisture. So there's one. Sometimes I get a little extra and I freeze it. Okay, can use it later. So if you do have a little more, just throw it in a freezer safe baggie. Thaw it out later. All right, so we're going to combine this, getting that arm workout. And some of you are like, why didn't you just get out a blender? Get out your mixer. Sorry. Oh, that smells good. I can smell that ginger. I will say a lot of times my husband doesn't like it when I bake because he doesn't crave a lot of that, but if it's around, then he'll eat it. But these, I was telling him the nutrition on these, and he was pretty impressed. And so he's like, oh, I'll just have a bite. And he ate a whole one, which is a big win for me. Okay. So then we're just going to spoon these into each muffin tin. And the other day when I did this, it's going to make about 12 muffins. And I think it was a little under 1/4 of a cup per tin here. So we'll see. The important thing is that they're even, so that they're going to bake evenly, right? You don't want to have to fiddle around with some of them being done and some of them still being wet in the middle and taking half of them out. So just try to keep them even. That's really true with anything you're baking, muffins, cookies, right? I usually use a little tablespoon as a measure for that. Yeah, so getting back to the nutrition, I want to make sure I don't misspeak here. But each one of these muffins has only 140 calories. Okay, so compared with a lot of muffins that you're going to be making, that's probably about half. And, you know, you're getting, yes, there's some fat. I think there's 5 grams of fat per muffin, but that's coming from your nuts. So it's a healthy fat. It's also low in sodium. I didn't add a lot of that. Okay. And you're getting, this is probably, I have some cookies that I make with, that are pretty similar to this. They have zucchini, and then instead of the applesauce, I use smashed bananas. Okay. That's something actually, if you didn't have the applesauce, you might be able to try smashed banana in its place and see how that works. But yeah, this is a recipe that calls for more zucchini than I've seen. So I'll be honest, I was a little bit skeptical when I first saw this recipe. I thought that's a lot of zucchini, but I did need to bake them a little bit longer. It's going to say to put them in the oven for about 20 minutes. They were not done at 20 minutes, right? You want the toothpick, when you insert a toothpick in the center of these, to come out clean. It took about 25 minutes for me, and some of that, you know, we're at a higher elevation here. No, I failed. I'm out of batter, and I have 1 slot left. So my muffins might have more like 150, 160 calories, but they're all the same size. So that's going to be okay. Okay. But yeah, they have a lot of zucchini in them, and a lot of, like, I mean, they have the applesauce. There's not a lot of added sugar. There's just 1/4 cup for all of this. So you can feel good about your choices. See, that's wah-wah. Okay, a little more calories per muffin. That's going to be okay. Again, this is a way to not kill your nutrition goals, but also still get that taste of home. So I'm going to put these in the oven, again, 25 minutes for me because I'm at a higher elevation. I'm guessing that's why. So started at 20 minutes. Again, toothpick in the center. If it comes out clean, it's done. If there's still anything on it, throw it back in the oven, okay? But you don't need to check after 15 minutes. It's not done yet, okay? Then you're just gonna release the heat from your oven. So I'm gonna put these in the oven, get them going. Then I'm gonna have a bite of these. It's a reward for all the work I did. So now that my mouth is full, I want to say more to you. So I will say this is the first time I made these, and I was, one, a little concerned about the amount of zucchini, but it's fine, it's not too moist. 2, I always worry about how things are going to freeze because it's either just my husband and me or just me eating these things. But they froze really well. Typically, I would just probably take them straight from the freezer and put them in the microwave to serve them warm. But for this, I just set them out a few hours ago. So I was kind of excited to taste them room temperature. They're good. They're moist, but they're done all the way through. And again, I think the green and the raisins is rustic. and pretty. So I hope you enjoy. Let me know what you think. I hope this makes you think of your loved ones who you can't be close to right now, but also brings you closer to your loved ones that you're stuck with right now. I hope you all are well. We'll see you next time.